Representation.
I know the girls are looking for that. I got it right here for y'all because I knew you guys for it.
I don't have it with me.
I got tons of soul on my true collectible. Famous, so famous, #1 desirable. I do what I want when I want and how I want it. Leave you with the one in the air. That's how I roll. This is me, I'm so royal.
What is going on? Welcome to another episode of In the Middle. We have decided to rebrand and relaunch, and we're trying something new. So I want to introduce you to our beautiful panel. You already know who they are. You've seen them on other episodes we've done. Right to my right, I have the lovely Tasia.
Hi.
Absolutely. And I also have Deshawn.
Gang.
Garbage.
Why are you?
Pose just dropped.
It just dropped like a mixtape, bitch.
She did. Season 2 of Pose episode 1 just aired Wednesday. What was our first reaction to it?
Loved it.
It gave me everything I needed, everything that I didn't know I needed, and a whole lot more.
Okay. Were we impressed by the visuals? I think the visuals were, like, from a cinematography standpoint, I can tell that the budget increased.
Yes.
Okay, the budget was
Relevant sponsorship.
Blanca looked good.
Blanca
I can
looked
tell they gave her
sickening.
some more money for her makeup and
Angel
stuff.
looks sick.
Yes, everybody look. I said the wigs are on point, and it's very hard to do. It's expensive to do like a period piece like
Yes.
that.
Right.
We jumped 3 years up. I thought it was 10 at first.
No, it was
No, it's
three.
just three.
This gave us 1990.
Okay.
And yes.
And it
So
looks good. I love the first. I love the first episode because I think that it did a couple things for me. So the most important thing that it did for me was the ode to Octavia St. Laurent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I love the when Angel's modeling and she's going back and forth for all like the modeling gigs she was trying to get, and like all those things were things that we've seen in Paris is Burning and in other documentaries. And I appreciated that they gave an ode to her, like a nod to her and what her existence was like and how important that was to like the ball scene and to modeling in general, because we all know like Madonna appropriating black queer ballroom culture, like kind of boosted it in a sense, but a lot of black and brown folks didn't get to experience that boost. So seeing the moment where Octavia St. Laurent was kind of capitalizing off of that almost to like make a name for herself, I love how they incorporated that, and I love.
come on, history.
Oh,
Give it
Absolutely.
to us.
and I love how in the beginning they started off with the mass grave site.
Yes.
As difficult as that was, like being
was
able to
important.
to really see that and like sit with that, like sitting with the fact that
And I didn't think
your
it was.
family members are being put in boxes on top
Yeah,
of
the
it.
and I
AIDS
didn't-
crisis was indeed a crisis.
And I didn't know that island was a real thing. I thought that was something that they came up with, and someone shared I think it was Jatella shared the article about it and the importance of it. And I was that moved me, but I had to close. I had to turn the TV off for a second when we started talking about HIV and AIDS.
Yeah.
And when Judy was talking to Blanca and let her know, like, sis, this is serious,
Yeah.
her T-cell count and all that, it gave me this sick feeling in my stomach. As much as I talk about HIV with friends and people who, newly diagnosed and all that, I'm not bothered. But when I saw that, I felt like I was looking at my own mortality, and it scared me because that was not that long ago. I was born in 87. And here we are in 2019, and some things have changed, but pharmaceutical companies are still looking for profits. And I'm glad they did talk about that, which is so funny because Gilead does sponsor some shit for Pose, and that was a critique last season, is that Gilead, y'all out here sponsoring, but sis,
But you still are holding the monopoly over PrEP.
Talk about capitalism.
Literally.
Let's talk about it.
And I that's one thing that I really do appreciate about Pose, is that what it really, really, really does is shows us how deeply connected our ancestors were to socialism, right?
Yes.
Like a lot of times folks like to they make socialism like a cis heteronormative thing, right? A white cis heteronormative thing. Like when you talk about black folks, like you only get to hear about the Black Panther Party widely, right? Or you get to hear about like Fanon or like a bunch of other black cishet men, and you never really get to hear about the Marsha P. Johnsons and the Sylvia Riveras and the Stormy Duvernay, like all the folks who were actually invested in socialism, specifically around black and brown, queer and trans folks. And I appreciate that lens. It's always like, without ever really directly naming it, they're always doing like this anti-capitalist critique in the shows, while also like, of course, playing dress up and like gagging at like the idea of being capitalist, which is what the ball scene is all about.
Right.
Which is funny.
Which
One
is
of your friends
hilarious.
working on an article or something about that? I heard somebody talking about that recently on Twitter. They said they was going to write about that or something.
Somebody always writing something on Twitter.
Don't you do it.
In that same vein of things, though, I think the biggest piece of the episode for me was definitely making pose about resistance and making pose about activism. And so I feel like the scene where Pray Tell, Billy Porter's character, goes to the ACT UP meeting and really sees, like, I don't have to feel hopeless in this AIDS fight. Like, I can stand up, I can fight back, I can organize with people. And even he was very critical, saying like it was very white, lesbian led spaces. He didn't feel like ACT UP would be a safe space for him. But for me as an organizer, as somebody who is getting really deep into the harm reduction side of things and thinking about, as a public health professional, thinking about revolutionary public health and how public health doesn't always have to be about stigma, doesn't always have to be about reminding us that we are sick, that we are fat, that we are queer, that, we can find a basis in the work and say, all right, these are the facts that we know, this is the injustice that we know, how the fuck do we go out, organize, and demand that these people do right by us?
Right.
So I felt like the scene when they went into the church, like that scene was so powerful for me, because it's like you are going into a space that is ultra conservative, that exists, that literally it's very.
And Angel did drag it.
Yes, it's
She
very.
said, I ain't paying none of the taxes on this
It's
shit. I
very
was like, get to it. Get to it.
Like the Catholic Church literally is very necropolitical, so it functions off of the death of everybody else, and so people are allowed to die just so this church can flourish and function off of piss poor political analysis, off of not being for people. And so for them to have that space held was amazing, and then for Pray Tell to hold Electra accountable.
Electrocuted her ass, didn't he?
The way that he held Electra
shit.
accountable for not showing up, not just for her house, but for her community. Like, you are an older member of this community. You've been down. You can do the ballroom.
Yes.
Grammy. It spoke volumes to me
Yeah.
for a lot of people in this world who literally are just here for the trophies.
Yeah.
You are out here talking about the work, clapping for the
Those
work,
bullets flying.
acting like the work don't exist, and everybody gives you all your trophies. But the people who are out here going to jail, getting locked up, not doing performance-based organizing, but coming from a place of, this shit affects me, I'm organizing from a place of survival for myself and my community. That read by Pray Tell in the ballroom and at the house was
Sis
amazing.
did drag him.
You know
Threw
what?
that damn shit on the ground.
No, he dragged the fuck out of
But he
her.
did give her things. He said, yeah.
He gave her
you
things
go
like, you
next
can always do
week.
your thing, you can always show
You're
up.
always gonna
You can always show up here and always gonna win your things and get your tens and you're gonna do your thing, girl, but also what the fuck else are you doing?
Yep.
And I
That's so
appreciate it, like,
important.
to your point, T, like, I love
Tea on the table.
Yes, tea on the table. Hashtag.
I
Right
loved the church scene. I love that, and it was also very triggering for me because for years we've had some really violent interactions with police.
Yes.
And I always tell folks like about the one time that I went to a protest that I didn't organize with one of my friends who also didn't organize it, Avery Jackson, and we were just
Love
walking
Avery.
together down the street and two police officers were whispering, but I heard them and they were like, "Oh look, that's Deshaun and Avery," and I'm like, "We
This
didn't
was in
organize this
Atlanta.
shit like just here in Atlanta. We didn't
Yes.
organize this. We weren't we were just there."
Yeah.
Like everyone else, and it's so like seeing how the police were interacting with them in that way was like hella triggering for me. And I'm also really glad that we've moved away from doing die-ins because I feel like we don't have to re-traumatize ourselves in that way because we always see dead black bodies on screen.
Yes.
But that whole moment was powerful, and then getting to Pray Tell and like how he dragged Electra in that way, like. That was powerful for me because literally just days before that, I was tweeting about how we're in a moment now where organizing is so popular and it
Would
can
you say
be
it's
corporatized.
It is an aesthetic.
It's a mainstream aesthetic now to where it can be corporatized, and so people only know how to respond to and organize around death,
Yes.
right? Physical death.
Yes.
They don't know how to organize around an actual living being before they are in a casket. And so Elektra will have all these moments of sadness and grief and anger when a person is dead, but in the moment where people are not actually dead yet, right? Where they're trying to avoid physical death, and they're experiencing social death, right? She's not trying to show up. All she cares about is her things and her trophies. And I was talking about that because a lot of organizers now, even a lot of the folks that I know personally, aren't showing up for their queer and trans family who is homeless, who is poor, who is without health care, all these different things, right? Who are desperately in need of like help, right?
Yeah.
But they will be the first ones on the streets should they die.
Yeah.
Mm.
Holding a sign. Selling the t-shirt.
Yelling out loud, yelling at police, trying to release demands and things
Posting
like
a
that.
graphic.
And organizing has to be about proactive work, right?
Yes.
We can't continually react to things because our organizing is already a reaction to systems built to keep us oppressed, right? So if we're always reacting to minimal things and we're never allowing ourselves to break away from or dismantle those things.
Exactly. And I was listening to Hella Black podcast.
Shout out to Blake Delancey.
And I live for their podcast. It's really good. But they talked about imagining revolution. And I feel like there's been a little bit of conversation on Twitter. I know I've been engaged in conversation here recently about the fact that it feels like organizing, it feels like social justice work no longer centers revolution. And it's very hard for me to sit with that.
Yeah.
And so the work that they're putting in on Pose is almost like you're watching people who sit at the very, very bottom of society, right? So this is New York City. This is post-fiscal crisis, New York City. This is the part where they have gutted social services, where the city has gone completely neoliberal, and they've literally left all the people at the bottom to die.
Yeah.
So the people at the top can flourish, and so the city looks strong and impenetrable, right? And so these folks, the cast on the show, are living their lives in direct resistance to this. They're living every day like it's their last. Their whole life is about revolution. And you see it when Blanca is pointing toward, the Vogue song and that longing that she has for like, it's finally time. And then I feel like Prey Tell's character kept grounding everybody in reality. Like,
You call it what, Transrella?
Yeah, Transrella.
Transrella. So every time you think it's going to make it, it's going to bring you out, and it doesn't.
It just never gets better for us. And I think...
And fuck Madonna white ass for can I say...
Absolutely.
Like white folks get to be out here and become icons for appropriating our shit and never doing shit for us. Like black folks, black queer and trans folks are really out here hoping on a wing and a prayer, right? That they would be able to get a piece of notoriety and a piece of money to be able to pay their bills.
That's it.
And her ass making a whole goddamn badass Vogue song.
You didn't like it?
No, it's trash. Like she trying to do like that calling shit. That shit's only authentic to the ballroom scene, and when you hear it that it's inauthentic.
It's a
when y'all hear that shit, it's like, bitch, fuck you.
Like suburban mall version of
they ought to sue her ass. Like
collectively.
like all the black trans folks here in the world should just sue her ass. She won't have no more money.
Exactly. Make her redistribute that wealth.
For real.
And in the same way, I feel like Elektra also played a plot device to keep showing like the ugly side of things. Like even in the kitchen scene when it was brought up, she feels like she should have some sort of privilege in the house to not be at family functions because she helps pitch in on the rent. And it's like, you're doing very little. Mm-hmm. I know it seems like a lot, but you're doing very little. You're not putting in work for the collective. You cannot just put up dollars and throw a resource at something and then hope that the house keeps running.
Because their resource will run out, and then what?
Exactly. And it did.
Because we saw that last season, and she had to humble herself. Now, let's talk about Elektra, because I love Elektra. I've had some issues, and I remember Hope was on here, and we talked about the episode never aired. But we did talk. Shout out to my girl Hope who talked about it, and she said that she did have a problem with some of the colorism on the show. I think they're doing a good job. I would like to see more of Elektra's story.
Yes.
Like she's flipping the table. We here for her flipping the table and all that, and going back to the other family, like, I'm here, bitch. I'm back.
welcome.
You're welcome.
Right.
I want to know more, and they said we got a little bit of her backstory, but I haven't gotten anything other than her sleeping with the dude from SVU.
And I feel like that's more side story, not backstory.
Yeah, that's not.
It's very much side story. I would love to see. I mean, even how
Would it be her childhood almost?
I don't
Or would
know.
it start, like, what age would it? 'Cause all of it's important.
I feel like Ryan Murphy shows tend to give us good backstories on characters eventually, and so I'm hoping that Pose will do that this season because I would like to see the backstory on Elektra, and I would like to see Angel's backstory.
Okay, so we can go back. Every two people that you'd like to see a backstory on. Mine will be Elektra and Blanca.
But see,
I feel like
we've gotten Blancas, and I also feel like we've gotten Angels.
Have we gotten Blancas?
Oh, yeah, we
Her
did see
mother
her.
died.
We did see her first.
Because her whole introduction into motherhood was through Elektra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, we
did.
Like, that whole moment where she's sitting with Elektra and talking through all of her trauma and all of what she's going through, and then
See how
for
backstory
a
is.
while in Pose, like we saw her with the short hair,
And
she walking in the ball
and the-
stick.
And she about to serve somebody some apple pie.
Like we
from
saw her
Sam's.
all like her build up until the moment where she becomes Blanca, the mother, right?
We got Damon's too.
Yeah, we got a lot of
we
his
saw
mother.
Damon.
Is that the one who got put out?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess this wouldn't be a backstory, but I don't know. I kind of felt like it was for me at least, like with Angel and knowing like her moment into like
Oh yeah.
sex work and all that
Yes.
she had to do to get to a moment of the ball scene.
So are we
of
not
the-
giving the dark skinned folks any backstory?
Well, that's what. I agree. I think Elektra deserves room to have a backstory because in this moment we only know her.
And
as
Candace
Blanca.
too.
Candy deserves.
Yeah.
Shout out to Angelica.
And
Yeah.
Angela is my
She follows me
favorite.
on Twitter. I
She's-
love her.
She's absolutely
She
my
deserves a
favorite.
backstory, but I will say that Elektra and Candy are the nastiest ones out of the whole.
Yes. And I think that bothers me a little bit
Because
because
they're
they are the
dark
darker skinned folk, and I'm like,
But also, I think that is true to the times.
yeah, it is.
Yes.
Like there were no fat folks there, so you don't see fat folks
Come on.
in the ball scene.
Come on.
And the dark
It took
skinned
us
ones
12
were
minutes
always
to get to that.
vilified. So and like the only time you ever saw a fat person imposed out of the whole the first season was the one or two times that Fatima had a pop in. I can't.
And we saw
Yeah.
Fat Femme on one episode.
Fat Famous Fatima.
Oh, okay, that was their character's name? Okay.
No.
No, that's-
Fatima is their name.
Oh my gosh. Don't fuck it up. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
Fatima is their
Don't
name.
drag me,
Let's get
please.
you right. We got you right.
Listen, I was like Fatima, I'm thinking Fatima, but that's sickening.
Yeah, Fatima.
Yes, okay.
Fatima. No.
Yeah.
So we saw like Fatima in there twice, but then
That was it.
really it, right?
Damn.
And then as far as the dark skinned folks, like the main characters, Candy and Elektra are the nastiest ones, and we don't have a backstory as to why.
We never
and I
seen-
think that it's true. I think it is true to the times, and also they deserve to have space to know what it is that
Which-
makes Elektra feel like she doesn't
Absolutely.
belong,
Absolutely.
right? And that
It's
she
true.
has to constantly
Enact power and dominance over
be
everybody.
a powerful force, right? Like
Yeah.
and then I think, and of course it's just the first episode, so I'm excited for the rest of the season, but I'm wanting to really see like how she's navigating going from this mother legends icon status, right, to now having to live in a house with a person who she created,
Yeah.
right? Like,
That she
and what that
raised.
feels like for her. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a good season. I think that being now that they have more creative control and more
Right.
room to create things in the way that they want to, Janet and Ryan Murphy and all of them will be able to do like a much better job because the writing in the first show to me was already miles better
Thank you, phenomenal.
than the first season. I thought the first season was great, so I'm excited about it.
I would say that. I think the only thing for me, I know I'm probably the only one on this, but the monologues do kill me a little bit.
You are the only one.
The monologues give you,
The monologue is
but
something,
they give you stories. The monologue
And they
is
stick.
the point.
but it be, I'm like, okay, girl, all right. Okay. I love when Elektra said, get down here and give me my trophy so I can stick it up your ass. That was cute. But when Elektra does them long, drawn out, I'm like, girl, I can't take that much.
But then I think it's because Elektra is just dramatic, and
Yes.
that's not just her character. Like
That's her in real life.
she is dramatic.
Yes.
and like she gives the
To
drama.
her
Yeah.
facial expressions,
Right.
to the way her lips move,
Right.
The way she
everything.
holds her body, with
Yes.
every word. She,
Yeah.
Oh my God, I live
She carries
every
that. I
time she
love that
speaks.
shit.
But it's,
Like she was born in the wrong era.
yes. But it also like makes. I think it trades off because they don't give her, to me, as many scenes as I
You
think
don't.
we see. We see so much of Angel. We see so much of Blanca. We see a good amount of Pray Tell. but we don't see as much Elektra and Bray
That's
Tail
what I'm
as we
talking
see
about.
Angel and as we see Blanca.
Blanca, yeah.
And
We
so
saw Blanca lost her job. Well, she quit.
and Candy too. And so I feel like they are, and Louis.
Shit, Poppy gets more time than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Poppy's a cis-het man.
Yeah.
It's about to fall in love with Angel.
Right.
Angel of mine.
The system stops at nothing to eradicate Black life, to completely dismantle any type of joy or hope that we have in our future. Our kids don't get to be our future in the same way that white kids do.
So
Yeah.
what did we think about our good sis Linda Farstein?
She's a terrorist.
Who played her in the
Fucking Felicity Huffman.
Isn't she in trouble
The
with
cheating scandal, the one who paid for her child to go to college. Well,
So,
white women go white women.
You don't know where to start.
I don't even. So I watched before I saw When They See Us. Of course, I've seen the Central Park 5 documentary.
Which is also
When was
Several
it?
times.
Who did that?
Oh, I don't remember who did that.
Was it what time? Like when was it? Like a couple years ago?
it was
This was
20
several years back.
I thought it was like 2012. Maybe
Yeah, it's been several years back.
So I'm gonna say this. I grew up in Memphis City. I'm about to say Memphis City schools, but I went to school in Memphis City schools in Memphis, Tennessee, and we were not taught any of this. I didn't know about the Central Park 5 until probably a couple years ago, but I didn't know much.
Yeah.
Well, no. So I didn't see the documentary in school. I'm pretty sure it was either at like a youth center that I went to or something. I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but I watched the documentary twice. And that one was more triggering for me than When They See Us was, and it might just be because
it was real.
it was very real. Like, you
And
see actual
documentaries
films
are, like-
and like what actually happened.
Right.
But what I really appreciated about When They See Us is that what the documentary doesn't do is tell you about the families.
Yes.
And when they see us, we get to see exactly what the family's response was to it, how exactly they engaged the boys, what exactly was happening around the time, how really, like, I know that we talk about now there being like an involuntary mothers group for all the mothers who are mothers of like boys murdered by police.
Right.
But at that time, that was already created, right? Like way before we even get to a 2014
I mean,
or
we had
2012.
that in Atlanta around the Atlanta child murders. The organized bodies of the mothers who were of the missing and murdered children were instrumental in organizing accountability for finding out who actually murdered their children, getting justice for all of the bodies that were gone, and not just enough to give the city a win. So you're absolutely right. Like,
Yeah.
historically, that type of tight-knit closeness. Because at that time, like I said, when you have all black people confined in one space, fam is fam. And so when you lose one or two, you lose us all. So everybody sticks together.
Yeah, so I appreciated like just the way that the documentary showed that, but it still was like a lot because while I have seen the documentary and I
feel like I need to see one
now. No, you definitely should watch it.
Yeah, you
and I've
must
met Yusef. Yusef came to Atlanta, or he lives in Atlanta actually. Like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
people live here in
yeah. A
Georgia.
lot of them moved
A lot of
to
Everybody
Atlanta.
everyone
Yeah.
except for Corey. He still lives in New York.
Right.
But Yusef came here to, this is when I was in school, to the Woodruff Library.
High school or
CAU.
college? What college?
College.
Okay.
And he came and spoke and told their story at like a conference that I was invited to.
Did it resonate with you at the time?
It did. I mean, because I already known about the boys, so
Okay.
I knew about them, and being able to actually meet one of them in person was really powerful for me. So that's why, like the series, the docu-series is what the dramatized docu-series is what I call it. Wasn't like super triggering for me. It was more like it gave more body and more context to a story that we oftentimes don't get with body and context. And I appreciate that about Ava. She always does a really
Please say
gotta
it. Please
get it
say
right,
it because they girls ate me up.
I know.
For saying all
I know. I appreciate that about her because she always does a beautiful job of like telling these stories. I do have to
That's
critique
my
her
critique,
where I want
And
her
we're gonna
to.
get to it because
I
we
want her to
wouldn't be
tell
in the
more
middle if
stories
we
than that,
did
but-
not.
We have to be critical of our faith.
But
Yes, we do.
but her cinematography here was beautiful. The way she humanized the boys was beautiful. The way she told the story was very beautiful.
I caught the shade you said these stories. But it's truth. But truth is shade.
So I'm gonna just flat out say, Ava, since she's blown up, has only told the stories of cishet black men.
Yes.
right? And like she does,
And
she used to do a really beautiful job of telling like black women's stories. She doesn't do that anymore. Her stories are always centered around black men, and I need for her to move towards black women, black LGBTQ folks, and all of that ensues, and don't just do our stories for as queer and trans folks just to do it. Make everyone on your fucking staff queer and trans, right?
Just
and make
like
sure that we're
colors.
all make sure that we're all involved
Those
in
stories can be
this
told
and telling our
correctly.
stories. Because
Right.
right now, like, I think her work is beautiful, it's magnificent, it's amazing, and there deserves to be more room given to those of us who are experiencing several different marginalizations within one community,
Yes.
and who oftentimes go unheard unheard and like unlistened to,
Yeah.
and oftentimes are experiencing these things at larger disproportionate rates, right? Like somebody brought up the New Jersey Four, right?
Yeah.
I heard about that
Like picture what it would be like telling a story about 4 black lesbians, right, versus 5 cishet black and brown men. Their stories are super, super, super important, and imagine being able to also tell these stories about these 4 black lesbians. And so I think that, you know, like, I couldn't get that out of my mind the entire time I was watching because it's the reality. But I have to say, Jerome Jerome deserves every
Absolutely.
award that they can toss
Yeah.
at him.
Listen.
Because the way that he played Corey, and that's one thing also.
They did a good job of aging him too.
They did a
But
wonderful job of aging him.
I'm not surprised
And
at
also
Jarrell
it took
Jerome
the-
at all, considering what he gave in
in
Moonlight too.
Yeah.
But it took them 4 years to record, so I imagine that helped with the
that
aging.
makes sense.
She said, I watched an interview from her, and she said that it started off with Raymond sending her a tweet saying, "Hey, can you do our story?
Shit.
#CP5." She hit him up, was like, "I'll be in New York this week. Can I meet with y'all?" And they've been recording for 4 years.
Damn.
The casting
So
was amazing. I would say
that
the
was
casting.
Yeah, it
brilliant,
was.
really beautiful.
When they showed the
boys.
as they aged and then them against the real life people, I was like,
Yeah.
that shit was spot on.
But not to stop on, but Jarrell Jerome when
He
he
deserves
said, "Come
every
see me
award."
more," when he was talking to his mother, that shit got me. Not him being in there like hallucinating and all that, but when he said finally when he saw his mother, and then I love the fact that they talk about how expensive it is to call because
Yes.
Yeah.
that is some garbage ass shit. And I remember one of my friends went to jail.
Yes.
It was
That shit is
$20 for. It was like we were spending like almost. Nobody has that type of money.
Right.
And you talking about that type of money back in
Back then.
That shit is garbage.
And they were all living in the projects. Like
All of them.
the family dynamics in this. I think when you talk about this, especially after coming from Pose, when we see how queer and trans folks often have the chosen family, whereas most traditional people have the given family, the family that you're born into, and the way that their family dynamics played into their situation. So you saw Raymond at home. He has a single father when he leaves. His dad is in his corner, but his dad only has so much capacity. Remember, even when they took him into custody, his father couldn't stay there to get him out because he had to go to work. And if
That's
he
it.
missed his shift, like
That's
that,
it.
that was it.
Yeah.
And then, they have the immigrant backstory. He's left with the grandmother who speaks no English. She dies while he's in,
Right.
while he's
It was
incarcerated.
garbage. It was garbage.
And then you get Corey's story. He has a trans sister. Who's
I
murdered?
love the way they told that story.
I did too.
And the sister didn't. The sister didn't know it was going to be told. She tweeted Ava and said that she was very thankful to see Marcy in the story because she didn't know that she was going to show up there.
Wow.
And that was beautiful to me. Like the fact that they were expecting for their trans sister to be left out of the story yet again. And this time she was brought in. And I think that Ava even did a beautiful job in humanizing that. Like I still didn't feel like Corey's mom was this beastly woman who wouldn't be, it was so relatable to me as
Niecy
somebody
did
who
that.
No, she did.
She did.
Yeah, she had
Because I
been
didn't see
saying for a
her. I didn't see
long time.
Nisa and Claus, and I didn't see her in that other show that she did, which she first, I think, can't think of the name of it. It was
I know
like
you're talking
Troopers or
about
something.
Oh, yeah, with
Yeah.
your vibe version.
Yeah.
She had been talking about for a long time about how she wanted to like move away from like being the sassy black like whatever, and she did the fuck out of that.
She
that.
And
did.
she like it was.
She reminded me of my mama,
It was beautifully done.
honestly.
I love that.
I mean, and then the way that like her yelling at her child and speaking harmfully to her child is so related to her oppression as a single black mom in the project. She is literally trapping out of the house. She's selling drugs
Right.
out of the house to make a way for them. she's by herself, and she's just like, I don't need one more thing to make me less human. That's basically what I grabbed from it. It's like, I gotta go through all this shit for us to be able to live and not even thrive, and like, I have this on me too.
Right.
And it's just, you know, I hate that experience, and I hated to see it on screen that way, but at the same time, we needed to see it that way.
What do we think about the how the media? I feel like majority of all media owe those boys an apology.
They owe them more than an apology.
They owe them reparations.
That shit was garbage.
It was mind blowing to me how, I mean, and this happens still to this day, of course, but it just to see it in plain time, it was just mind blowing to me how they came up with their own facts. They said this shit does not fucking connect, but I'm gonna make it connect anyway, and build a fucking case against them. Like that shit was mind blowing.
The most important piece of it was the interrogation.
Yeah.
And that's how crimes are solved.
Yes.
And I have to say that so much because when I wanted to be a police officer, when I wanted to be, I'm not going to deal with y'all, but I was 2 years into criminal justice, and they were saying that like most crimes are solved by interrogation and
coercion.
And that's exactly what it was. So we're not going off of DNA evidence. Even when they said there was none, it didn't make any logical sense. Oh, girl, we're just gonna keep pressing them.
Even when they proved that the DNA evidence that was found was not on the 5 boys, they didn't give a fuck.
And then the guy who actually did it, Reyes, he literally
said it.
First of all, he committed his crimes within like the same calendar year.
Right.
Remember, so he got locked up in August. They went at like the beginning of the year.
That's how fast they were. They weren't even checking the MOs.
Exactly. It seems to me like once you got his DNA evidence connected to a series of rapes and murders that looks very similar to the Jogger case, why would you not test his DNA against most of the rape kits that you had or all the rape kits that you have?
At that point, Linda was fucking sold on them 5
It's like
boys.
the police have money and resources for every fucking thing except for the things that we actually need to have justice.
Now, getting on that, there was a tweet that shook me the fuck up today, and they said that it's sad that the murderer like felt more pain for somebody else taking for their crime than the damn police officers.
But at the same time, I'm like, damn, why the fuck did you come forward when you and Corey was fighting in the jail 4 or 5 years before that?
And Corey was only there to support his fucking friend.
Sick. I was angry with.
You're in jail for life already. You're not getting out.
You're not getting out.
And that was the justification that he used for going ahead and coming for it anyway.
Right. And that was the biggest thing that I thought about was like, you know how sick of an individual you have to be to not only commit all these violences and not only to commit the one against Tracy, the Central Park jogger, but to also wait 12 years before you come forward because you found Jesus. If you don't get that colonized shit out of my fucking face, like, there's no fucking way in the world. And you know what? I'm pissed at him, but I was really, that made me more enraged with, like, Christianity and, like, evangelicalism and how they think about, or really how they have taught our people, black and brown folks, to arrive at
tea on the table.
They have taught us to like not arrive to a point of morality until we meet up with this fucking docile white ass Jesus that isn't even the real Jesus, right? And like the very fact that you didn't see any sort of like reason to connect with these brothers like you were. Like, he was a brown man in fucking New York, and we know how intermingled brown and black Afro-Latino and Afro-Latinx folks are in New York.
Yeah.
The fact you didn't see any like connection with them until you found some sort of Jesus in prison. I know they're not teaching y'all about no radical Jesus.
Listen.
The fact you didn't think about that until 12 years later, it burns my heart, and it makes me pissed that we are constantly working through colonized notions of morality and ethics and things like that. And it's just like, that was the biggest upset for me when I watched the documentary, and even now to this point. And fuck Linda, because her ass she grew a fucking platform on Twitter.
She did.
Like, fuck y'all for following her.
And then
like,
she got a fucking op-ed in was it the New York Times?
it was WJS or some shit.
I think it was AJW.
It was the Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she got an entire op-ed, and it's
the title
literally
was garbage.
titled like
The
lies
should
in the Netflix
and-
series.
and that-
I'm like, who let you?
But it's Wall Street.
And they wanted to make money off of
Exactly.
that. I would have told the story. I would have probably published it, but I would have not allowed them to do that title.
That was
I'm
awful.
gonna publish that shit.
Like, But that's
It's
quote unquote
supposed to be-
journalism.
Yeah,
Fuck her.
It's an opinion piece, right?
I don't give a fuck about
But
her.
then you
ugly
really
ass
get
opinion.
But
it
white
wasn't
women
it
like-
wasn't it wasn't about telling the story. It was about let's
Cleaning up
capitalize
her
on
own
this
shit.
shit
And cleaning
because
up
a
her
lot
own
of people
shit.
don't read. I didn't read the bullshit.
I didn't read it either.
I didn't.
I
You
saw
can take
it.
screenshots of it and I'll read it then. But I'm not interested in that white
shit.
woman
Read
story.
it.
Looking like goddamn.
This was still making it like, oh girl, came all together. So we're talking about that. Let's talk about Queen Oprah is currently doing an interview but she's already did an
She
interview.
already did it.
She did with
It's
the
just-
Central Park Five. And Oprah has some history.
with them CP5.
Yeah, she does.
This is
Where
where
she
I
was against them and denounced them back in the time when they were being arrested. I wonder if she gave
But that
them
was
apology on the
journalism.
show.
They said it was journalism.
I'm sure it was.
I don't.
sounds like tap dancing.
It does, but I mean that's
Shout out to Steve Harvey.
folks want to call Oprah a
Journalist.
journalist, and when I'm looking at journalists, I'm looking at Action News 5 at 10 o'clock, Atlanta News, and they're talking about someone found in the park dead.
Very neutral.
But here's the weather, like no emotion being shown at all. But Oprah doesn't. She does, like I would say, journalist work, but she has a connection. She's really just talking about the things that are going on that are trendy right then at the time, and she's giving her opinions on it. But you cannot be a journalist and say that you quote unquote condemn. You're trying to get to the truth or whatever, let these folks tell the story, but you're not offering your
you
opinion
can't
on
give
it.
a biased opinion.
No,
So I don't-
not even opinion, period. You don't give an opinion.
Oprah, first of all, in my eyes, Oprah
I
has
thought
not
you were
been.
going to say fuck Oprah.
Fuck her. Fuck Oprah.
Damn, can we-
Just
And
like in Republican, fuck ice.
fuck Ice, fuck Oprah, fuck Linda,
She
fuck
did.
Elizabeth, fuck all these bitches.
Damn.
Fuck the
But
police. All of
coming
them.
straight from the underground. But no, so
Demonetized.
right,
Period.
no, literally. So what I'm saying is like,
Radical YouTube channel.
We're gonna get flagged. They
So-
think Russia's funding this.
first of all, Oprah has not been a journalist since she was 19 years old.
Damn, when she was at TSU.
When she was fucking at college and then got her first job at a news station and she was on the fucking television.
On the beat.
screen.
Yeah.
That was her last time she was fucking
A
journalist.
Give us the history. Give us the facts.
Give us the facts, right? And I don't agree actually that journalists are neutral.
Yes.
Journalists have never been neutral. They always have a tone that will show you what exactly side they're leaning towards.
It's very hard.
Even if they write it to be neutral, I can tell when I'm reading something from a right-wing journalist versus somebody who's on the left,
We
right?
can say that
Or a centrist.
with print, definitely. Sometimes
I'm thinking about that.
That voice is a little harder to dictate when you're in a reporting sense, unless you're on an opinions-based newscast like Fox News, right? That gives them a lot more leeway. So it's not like, the government's doing this today. It's like, where the fuck Fox News stands. And so you know that their opinions are going to be based on favoring something. Print, absolutely. But when you're doing reporting, which is what Oprah specializes in,
Come on,
Investigative.
specialized. Come on.
investigative
And,
reporting is what Oprah, her whole brand is built on. Absolutely.
But I still think even with investigative reporting, they still because of how particular language is,
Yeah.
they can still use, and they do still use language that will very much show you who they're leaning towards or what part of the facts they've chosen to believe and what part of the facts they've chosen to
Or
just
what they're
put
trying
in
to
there.
tease out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And with Oprah, like you mentioned, this was in the height of the crack epidemic and like the prison industrial complex, and this was right around Reagan, right before and during Reagan, and then
Bush.
fucking right
Yeah.
before Bush and Clinton. So it obviously makes sense that a lot of black folks in that time, because of internalized anti-blackness and because of white respectability politics and
Hyper-perform.
decorum,
Yes.
it makes sense that they want to believe that, but it doesn't make sense to me, however, that Oprah decided to write an entire article and be very vocal about how much she was denouncing the Central
So
Park.
there's one thing to say that you're kind of quote unquote the part of the times and how things were going, but also going the extra mile and making sure that you are.
She was about as bad as Trump. The only thing she didn't do was buy
A fucking
a
ad.
fucking ad.
And the thing about Oprah too, in that sense, she will weaponize her oppression, right? So she will combat a reading like what you just gave us with "I am a darker skinned black woman out here trying to make it in the journalism world, with the air quotes. But so in order for me to do that, you're right. You have to perform not just respectability and decorum, but like hyper perform that to show white folks, to show white media, to show the white world that I'm acceptable. I'm not like those blacks. So therefore, I'm not going to be a radical. I call it a different world era, right? Because when you watch a different world, like you do have, characters on there that do lean toward the revolutionary. They do have moments where they have social justice tropes. But for the most part, a different world is meant to show us what it's like for black folks to get out of, to make it. What happens to the blacks who make it, who do go to college, who do get educated, and then they go into very respectable careers.
I would say that Oprah already has a long history, and I'm just not willing to give her anything else. The disrespect she gave Monique, the situation with Michael Jackson.
That was absolutely.
It's just like how many we're going to give her. The things she said about how over in Africa the kids are more appreciative than the ones in the U.S. Like sis has said so much shit. I'm just like, how we're gonna continue to let her grow?
Shout out Oprah and her growth. Oprah has been she changes with the wind. And she changes with the audience. And she very much so is very black when it comes to a black audience. But when it becomes time to perform in front of her, it's always going to be the suburban black, right? Like she's gonna go and knock on doors for Stacey Abrams and talk to the suburban black folks out in fucking Douglasville or wherever the fuck.
Or South Fulton.
But if she sees some twerking,
but she's not gonna bring her as the bankhead and say knock out here for Stacey Abrams. She's not that kind of black.
They might bop her upside her head. And take
some money, and she knows that. And she knows that. And so, like, she will perform and feign like blackness on shows, like when she did her Emmy nomination, right? She hopped up there and I believe that the black group should be free. But then she'll hop on her show and denounce and talk about and degrade black folks and bring out Monique's rapist to the show when after she told her that she wasn't going to, right? And so it's like
that's so violent.
Oprah girl, like you
pick a side.
Can't pick a side because your side is the money. And you will always be committed to the money because capitalism taught you to be that, and now you're one of the biggest capitalists in the world, black capitalists in the world. And so if you're going to do that, then sis, we don't got enough shit to say to you. Like fuck you.
And Oprah's so cliquey.
She is, but you can see how you can see it.
She's very much cliquey, and so I take that stance because it didn't shock me that she was the one that got the interview because she and Ava are buddies.
And here we are.
So Ava, my favorite Ava DuVernay work is Queen Sugar. Queen Sugar is on OWN.
Yeah.
And it's like, would Queen Sugar be big? Would it be sustainable without the endorsement and the investment of Oprah? No. Absolutely not.
I don't think
not a show that black, that southern, telling that fucking story.
Right.
And here's the real tea. I don't think the tea on the table. Oprah's own network was never trying to produce stories like that in the very beginning.
No.
She was actually losing money, and people were not watching the content because she was putting out this white bullshit, and the girls was like, But the moment the nigga shit started working, they said, oh, okay, we just, let me get this Jungle Juice money and shit. So let's start doing more like black stuff.
Right.
I'm just not a fan. I think I completely lost it for Oprah when she interviewed Amy Schumer.
Yes.
And then she said something. She called, I think, her queen or something. She said something that just irked me. It was the way she interviewed her and said, I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do. Fuck Monique. Fuck the darkness. Because when someone asked her, when she was promoting that trash ass movie with Ava, Wrinkle in Time, that shit was garbage. Still love you, Ava girl. Follow us on Twitter. That movie was goddamn garbage.
We just critiquing her fave.
We just are.
We like her work.
And it's just what it is.
Well, she's not my fave, but I do think it from her.
I mean, work-wise, when I think about look at the material. With the
exception of
Wrinkle in Time. The When They See Us was excellent. Love Queen Sugar. I love the fact that we do still get authentic black stories from her.
Absolutely.
Even if it is skewed toward the cis head.
Okay. No, I think that she does a wonderful job of doing that. And even with Wrinkle in Time, I didn't like the acting, and I thought it was kind of too much focus on this, but the cinematographer there even was really good because her eye is sickening, and she does a beautiful job of placing black folks on the screen. Like
capturing
the way that she makes us look on camera is unmatched. Only her and Jordan Peele are doing that.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate them both for that.
Well,
but I
Issa
have
Rae, when you watch
yeah,
and her
Insecure,
team.
the way her team and
Yes.
Insecure does
and their black team with their hot sauce and their cocoa butter and
you know what?
and their Henny unopened.
We get it. It's a black show. You don't have to hype up the performance. We're gonna watch. We're making this way the year. We're gonna watch.
Who was doing it with the Henny shit?
You didn't see
You
that?
didn't see the HBO promo that said we're coming back, and it was a bottle of
In
hot
case y'all
sauce
were
and
wondering
cocoa
how
butter
black our
and Shea
crew
Moisture.
is. Yes, you didn't
Yes.
see that?
No, I don't
Girl.
want to see
It was
it.
the first
Hate to see it.
tease
You hate to see it.
Hate to see
Hate
it.
that for her. But yeah, I think the three of them are doing brilliant jobs of putting black folks on the screen and making us look like we look, right? Like,
I just don't think Work of the Time was the right time for that. We had a quote biracial child chasing her white father.
it was as trash as the whole concept.
Yeah, I was just like,
and it just was trash. I don't ever want to see that.
it looked like some shit that was gonna be on NBC. But that's a whole nother story. Mixed dish teas. But while we're talking about, we are talking about so many shows and things.
Yes.
I wanted a sword fight, if we can.
End it, darling.
No,
We're
I'm talking about
talking about a
striking.
different sword.
We're talking about striking.
Sword
A
fight.
sword swallower.
Striker Viper.
Through and through. But Striking Vipers, Netflix dropped 3 Black Mirror episodes, and they were all sickening.
I didn't watch all of them.
I haven't seen them all.
I saw all of them, but we were only interested in one, and that was Striking Vipers, because so many people tweeted us and told us to talk about it. We had 2 black, dark-skinned men engage in some shit online. Can you want to tell us the story? What was happening? What did you think when we saw it? When we saw the men?
Give us the
I'm gonna tell you this.
synopsis.
I was getting homoerotic tease the moment they were playing the couch and the game and stuff. I was getting homoerotic tease.
So I know that a lot of the girls are looking for me to praise the show and
Representation.
I know the girls are looking for that. How-
I have it right here for me because I knew you was gonna. I have it right here for
No,
you because I
you
knew I was
shouldn't.
gonna ask you
I
for
got it right here for y'all because I knew you guys asked for it. I don't have it with me. I did not like it. What all the show did to me was it allowed cishet black. I'm gonna to quote Jordan, the post Frank Ocean masculinity.
But that
We'll get to that in a second.
Wow,
but
what a moment.
It allowed it. Ever since Moonlight, everything that has to do with black men and sexuality always reverts back to Moonlight.
Yeah.
And in this moment, it allows cishet black men to move to and through queerness without ever really touching it, to a point where we can queer bait and we can have homoerotic tensions and homoerotic like interactions, right? But ultimately, and it's good enough for us to claim some sort of representation, right? Neoliberal representation.
Ooh,
Right.
Jesus.
But what it
Red man.
actually does,
I want to be the center because of it.
well, what it actually does is it queer baits and it pulls on cultures oftentimes underrepresented, and it continues to give one look to how black men maneuver and move through masculinity
Because
and
neither one of them are
sexuality,
queer.
right? Neither of them are queer.
As well.
And if this, even in their meeting up, right? Like what we get is interpretation.
Yeah.
In my interpretation, when they kissed, they actually did feel the fire, and they actually did want to be with each other, and they just denied themselves that, right? Much like Black and Kevin did in Moonlight.
Yeah.
However, that's all up to how you interpret the
stuff in
art.
the sand.
Well, when they were children, yes. Now as adult men, these men are maneuvering and navigating cis heteronormativity, the nuclear family and what that looks like,
Yeah.
and how what it means to exist in the South, because this was a very southern setting, while exploring and dealing with and moving through sexuality, right? And so I was very displeased with it. I didn't appreciate, and I read an article where
It was already think pieces on it?
already, of course, because Twitter.
It's only been out like a week or so.
Yeah, when you get the teaser.
The girls had it
it's
written
right.
up on the night of. They watched it and then wrote it. So
They
I read the
watched
article,
it.
and one article that it was titled "Striking Vipers Striking Vipers X helps black men move through
Was
the
it on
masculinity
BuzzFeed?
or some shit." I don't know. It was on some. It was like they were calling it some important body of work around
No,
black men.
I'm not giving them all of that.
It wasn't that. It didn't. We have Moonlight, right? We have Moonlight, and we hold it up, and in that way, I think that was way more I think that was much more queer than Striking Vipers ever
No,
will
it
be,
wasn't.
right? But like, there has to be a way for us to be able to move through and maneuver and talk about queerness, especially as it relates to black men, without continuing to reify this idea that we can only arrive to queerness through
Sex.
through sex and through harmful DL positions
Yes.
that require us to always already deny ourselves our sexuality.
It gives me very much. So I know you date Moonlight and post Moonlight, or as you know, Jatella, very much
Post Frank Ocean.
post Frank Ocean. I like to date it post Elin Harris. So you
that's
know,
my book. This first queer book I read.
yeah. So you know, like
And my
growing
teacher
up,
suggested.
yeah.
She knew I was one of the kids.
So every black kid knows what it's like when your mama got all them horny ass books on the
They be
shelf.
having
Who
them.
was the girl? Who was our favorite author? I
We
cannot think
love
of
Zane.
her. Yeah.
We love Zane.
Skyscraper.
We love Eric Jerome Dickens. We love
Yes.
Kimberly Lawson, Robin.
My mama had all them.
Yeah, yes,
I would read them things in high school.
what Elin Harris gave to me was very much contemporary, post different world era. What it's like to be out and gay and DL and gay, and why you would like to play on those tropes, you know, for the time period. It was very much still, like I said, you have to perform hyper respectable blackness in order to navigate things. But the way that he wrote characters, most of his characters are based on his own life, right? So origins in the South, going to a major, you know, white PWI, and still, despite everything, you know, finding love in all the places that you're not supposed to find it, overcoming sexual abuse, things of that nature. So knowing that we have content like that has existed for years, it still shocks me how, or not necessarily shocks me, it puts me in a place of confusion that we have hyper queer representation in something like Pose, right? That's on our TVs every freaking week. To come to something like this, and it's like we can embody queer activity without embodying queerness.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like your shirt says, to be visibly queer is to choose your happiness over your safety.
Girl, the happiness gate bullshit.
So many black folks are, especially black and brown queers, we are denied access to happiness for existing as we are. And to see content like Black Mirror just say, because you know Black Mirror is supposed to play on futuristic tropes, it's supposed to play on technology.
It says it's supposed to be like us looking at a dead phone.
Yeah.
And that's the Black Mirror. Like, that's what I got from it.
Right. And so it makes us think, you know, as technology progresses, as access to each other and access to different forms of representation and normalizing different forms of representation comes up, why is it that we still feel the need to cling to safety over truly happy, joyous representation? What would it have looked like to have queered that episode to the point where they were in an open polyamorous relationship, right? Because heteronormativity and homonormativity teaches us that monogamy is the be-all, end-all.
Right.
And that in order for us to have a black future, we must have a strong black family, which is wrong and white as fuck.
Right.
And we need to dismantle that.
Right.
That is revolutionary thinking. What would it have meant for, you know, the character to have kept his wife and kept his child, and to also have a open, like not hidden partnership with the best friend?
And
Towards the end, I think they came together.
and made that decision.
They made the decision. Now, we did see him like hiding from the wife, and she knew something was going on because when he got into bed, he had an erection.
Said, where did this come from?
Listen, it was giving us
What's the
very
tea?
much, what's the name of this show? Degrassi Tea.
Girl.
Like, girl, what is this? What's going on? And she was like, oh, okay. And he was trying to hide that because it was weird. And he didn't know what to do with it. He was very much uncomfortable, but it wasn't gay because I'm a different character. And it made me feel like, girl,
I got to get into it.
listen.
So what does it mean to embody your queerness all
Listen,
the time?
and I felt like it was shade towards like hetero. I mean, I think that's probably what Duval was pressed about because he probably be having plenty of moments
You know what?
with him playing games and shit. And it's like, is that shit homoerotic for you to be playing? Girl, these niggas finna put the PS4s down. It's too gay for them. Like,
That's gay. That's a
I mean,
gay.
they already think sitting this close together is that gay shit. I
or
mean,
playing with a female character.
or baby.
But see, I'm gonna get into this.
Drag it.
Go off.
I think we got a couple of minutes left.
I might need a little longer. I understand what game they were trying to like work through, right? Like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, whatever. But to place black folks, black men on a screen and say that they can't arrive to any sort of sexual intimacy unless it's through lighter skin and varied genders was what really got me, right? Like the idea.
They had a polar bear on one.
You know what?
The idea that
We don't know the polar bear.
we don't know what the polar bear looks
Pronouns
like.
or whatever.
White.
Okay, I'd rather fuck with an animal than fuck with somebody of my
I mean,
sex, right?
look.
But like we don't ever get to see a moment in which they are perfectly okay with, or even not perfectly okay with, but like struggling through sexual intimacy with one another.
Yeah.
It's always through an Asian man and an Asian woman, both gym bodies, both like like thin and lighter skin and assumed cishet, right? So their entry point into gay sex or homo sex, right, is through cis heteronormativity still.
Yeah.
And I think that was my biggest issue because, right, like even in our virtual realities, we still have to like reenact our actual reality, right? Like, and I thought a lot about how folks on Twitter, right? Like Twitter gives a space.
Talk about it.
And it gives us space to be folks who we don't get to be offline, right? Like a lot of folks get to, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like some trans folks get to be out as trans online because they can't do it safely in person, right? But then there are also the influencers, right? Where they get to be this rich and popping folks online because offline they're broke and dusty and whatever, right?
Waiting on that next check.
And it made me think about that and how like,
on the 21st.
it made me think about that and how our realities, right, oftentimes, or our virtual realities oftentimes don't get to mimic our realities, right? Mm-hmm. And because of that, we are always working through sexual intimacy and creating like sexual intimacies online with other people who are also not who they say that they are, or who are also not giving room to be who they want to be, right? Or who they are. And so I just took major issue with the fact that the one time in the entire show we got to see them two face to face, or not the one time, but every time we got to see them face to face as adults outside of the first party, there was always tension. Yeah. There was always tension, there was always anger, there was always frustration. They never got to be sexual beings with one another. They could only do that through cis heteronormativity and lighter skin, thin, gym body people.
Do you think the woman knew when she invited? His wife knew when she invited him?
I don't think that she knew. I know that you do. I don't think that she knew because I think that she knew something was up. Right. I don't think she knew something was up with him. And the reason why I say that is because she seemed so genuinely interested in knowing why they were fighting after she picked him up from the
police
station.
But she also knew when she sat down with him at the diner that you don't look at me the same, something is different.
No, yeah.
Like things were already not what she wanted to be because when
she asked him directly, she said,
she asked him,
"Is something up?
Like is something going? Is it another person?
Right? Is something going
so that's what makes me believe that she knew that he was doing something.
So
like
you think it was specific?
I just think
that she knew it was with the friend.
I think she knew because
I
think she. And maybe this is just me. I think black women be knowing.
Black women do know, but I don't think that she knew because she kept saying to him like, "You don't get to see Carl enough. You don't ever get to see Carl.
I think she put him more.
I
think she added it up and said, you know what? Let me see what the tea is.
She could have.
Because ain't no way in the hell they was in there whispering and shit, and she didn't hear that shit in the background.
But no, that was hilarious.
I was like, girl, them dishes. She ain't been fucking no pots and pans. Sis was in there listening. She had tiptoed, and she probably was trying to listen to see what they were mad about, and then she started to get the real tea.
That might be true. I don't know, but that's also again up to interpretation, which I hate.
Yes,
but,
I love it.
I mean, I love it, but I hate it. But I really also had a big right. Well, I got into going back to the whole idea of like not being able to experience sexual intimacy with one another. Like before they got arrested, right? In the game when they first started playing the game, they would oftentimes like wrestle first before they got to having sex. Right. And when they did that in the latter half of the film, when they were or of the show, when they were going to like before they got arrested, they kissed, said they didn't feel any sexual energy, but then they kept holding hands, right?
Because even when they first met in the street in the game, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen exactly. And
so we gave a couple more minutes.
They started rolling around, like they beat each other up now.
Stop.
But they weren't able to get to a point where they could actually explore that sexual intimacy because the police disrupted them. And that to me said that we are so heavily surveillanced by the police and the police state.
I knew they were going to do it.
We are so heavily policed by the police and the police state that we oftentimes are kept from exploring sexual intimacy. And that does not always mean physical police officers, right?
Yeah.
But this idea that I always tell folks that, and I wrote a piece about this, where my piece is called, what was it called? DL, girl, I can't even remember my piece. Anyway, it's on my website. But I wrote a piece of talking about how prisons are not just the physical walls, right? We live in a police state, so everything is a prison.
Absolutely.
And so this idea that that they can't explore the idea that we are so
containment.
Yeah, we do.
You have to realize it.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But this idea that they can't arrive 3 times, that they couldn't get to
in the bombs.
They couldn't get to a point where they could actually explore their sexualities because cis heterosexuality is a prison.
Yep.
The nuclear family is a prison. This idea that you must conform to Foucault, everything was a prison, right? And so that was my issue with that, was we're so heavily surveillanced by the police state that we don't get to ever really explore our sexuality, and when we do, we always run the risk of being brutalized and incarcerated for it.
And
we see that shit with pride marches.
Listen, okay, let's talk about it. No fucking police at pride. But they're gonna show up anyway.
Message.
But they're gonna show up anyway because when we scream no police at pride, we always get the butts and ifs, right? Well, what about gay officers? What about queer officers? Fuck them, because they are complicit with upholding the fucking cisgender heterosexual police state.
Right.
And that's what it is.
On the next episode of In the Middle, we will definitely be talking about that. But I do want to finish up and see how we felt with how they came together and say, okay, I'm going to go on dates and get my peen on the side at the diner or whatever. And they came into an agreement where you can get you some dick. Or whatever, virtually. So with that being said, Striking Vipers, she was that girl.
She was.
But she does need some work done. We don't want to see that bullshit no more. Fuck out of here. But I will say that I did enjoy that they came up with some type of resolution and saying, hey, you're going to get your piece, I'm going to get my piece. But I want to know, is she going to be getting some penis on the side, or does she want to just feel like something else, something intimate? Because she did say that her husband was not looking at her the same. And intimacy is different for everybody.
Right.
She might not want sex. I guess we'll find out, girl. But with that being said, thank you all for joining us on another exciting episode on In the Middle. Ciao, garbage. Until next time, we'll see you next week.